Good morning, friends. It's so good to see all of you again. This had been the fourth year of our partnership. And for my presentation this morning, I would like to present something a little, well, to me, or to many of you, I think it will be simple. But the main purpose of intentionally making it simple so that we can have better research in our colleges and in our universities. The topic of my presentation is Assuring Quality in Undergraduate Research, a review of best practices and recommendations for improvement. As you notice, the focus is on undergraduate student research. One of the purposes of this partnership is to promote research. And as I make my observations, especially as president of the university, and observing what's going on not only in our institution, but also as I ask what's going on in other institutions, I can say that we have done a lot. We have progressed a lot. At the same time, there's also a big opportunity to improve the quality of undergraduate research. So this presentation is a reflection on our present practices in relation to undergraduate research, practices which give rise to quality assurance issues. The observations I am going to share this morning is primarily the limited observations I have of what we're doing in AUP and also from asking other schools what's happening. I wish that we had a more focused group meeting on this issue, or perhaps documented studies on undergraduate research. But I discovered that in our part of the world, in Asia, there is very little research on undergraduate students, on what they do and what are the results of their research. Some of my observations are that many times in the undergraduate level or in our level, we do not make a distinction between undergraduate from graduate studies. It seems that what we require to our undergraduate students is just a minimized or less rigorous approach, but basically the focus, the topic, the intentions, and the purposes are still primarily shaped by graduate research. As such, research, even for undergraduate students, is having to produce original, perhaps cutting-edge knowledge suitable for publication in external refereed journals. But the question is, how many of our undergraduate research can actually be accepted in refereed journals? In some universities, they really have a specific journal for undergraduate research. So they separate the graduate publication from the undergraduate. But again, it shows a little bit of, artificial demarcation of what research is all about. Another observation that I have is that there seems to be little intentionality in aligning undergraduate research with the educational outcomes and curriculum objectives of the specific academic program of the undergraduate student. We are beginning to use in education what we call quality frameworks. For example, in European education, Australia also, they're beginning to write specific quality expectation for undergraduate programs, for graduate programs, and the doctoral programs. It seems when it comes to asking our students what requirements they will fulfill, we have not considered that the expectation for undergraduate is different from the graduate programs. So, what happens is that practical issues arise in our universities. For example, resources. I will mention later that even as undergraduate program, the research as graduate program is often funded by the student, we also ask the same on the undergraduate student. So, come to think of it, what can the undergraduate student do without adequate support from the institution? I understand that in Europe and in the United States, in some areas, they already have a budget for undergraduate student research, in addition to what the faculty has when he or she collaborates with the undergraduate students. And of course, equipment and others. The purpose of this presentation is, first of all, to clarify let me get used to this. Yeah, there you go. The purpose of this presentation is first of all the first purpose of this presentation is first of all to clarify the theories and assumptions that we have as faculty members that undergird our practices in undergraduate student research. The issues raised are mostly not my own, but already found in available literature on undergraduate research. The second purpose is to suggest a framework, a simple framework that hopefully can be applicable to your situation, a framework that may inform and improve current practices related to undergraduate research. Many of the suggestions I will cite are based on a publication by the Council of Undergraduate Research in the United States, an association of 645 institutions that had been there already for 30 years. And so they had compiled a document that gives the characteristics of excellence in undergraduate research. And I think we can benefit from that document also. I believe that such a presentation will respond to the purpose of this conference, or the theme of this conference, that is to bridge theories and practices. The first question is, how do we define undergraduate student research? What are the goals? Why we promote, even require undergraduate research? Let me ask a brief question. How many universities here require undergraduate research? May I see your hands? How many? In AUP we require. Okay? I think it's common, huh? Next, how many of your universities require all seniors, graduating students, to have done research before they graduate? May I see your hands? So it seems Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, similar, yeah? There is the expectation that part of your training is a part of the student's training is to do undergraduate research. Now, answering these fundamental questions is essential to quality improvement. The Council of Undergraduate Research, in their document, cite as their first recommendation this suggestion: there is a need in our schools or our institutions to clarify and articulate how undergraduate research aligns with the mission or strategic plan of the institution. In many ways, in the Philippines now, with their typology, I think Indonesia may have a similar education reform. They classify institutions, whether it's a community college, whether it's a professional institute, whether it's a research university. It's only students in the research university who are required to do undergraduate research. For other types of institution, it's optional. So it is related to the function or the mission of the institution. So we go to why. Why involve undergraduate students in research is the question of many. And you know what? Oftentimes, the answer is this: because it is required by the government. That's the common answer. Why are we doing research? Because it is required by the government. But the suggestion of this council is, have we really looked at, as an institution, our outcomes, our purposes, and then align the kind of undergraduate research that we require so that it be aligned to the purposes of the institution? Indeed, since the 1980s and finally in 1998, when the United States, through the Boyer Commission, presented 10 recommendations for the radical restructuring of undergraduate education, since then, we followed their model, and we also required all undergraduates to do some form of research. But then, why do we promote and even require research, aside from just following what the government commands? The answer I found in my review of literature is that the Boyer Commission report, sometimes we miss this, their main reason for requiring research for undergraduate students is what we can call the connection between research and inquiry learning. The emphasis is inquiry learning. So it's not just we require one subject for research, but that as a whole, in our institution, we emphasize inquiry learning. As the quotation states there, inquiry, investigation, and discovery are at the heart of the education enterprise. Everyone at a university should be a discoverer, a learner, and the teaching responsibility of the university is to make all its students participate in the mission of that institution. And the basic idea or the basic connection of inquiry learning is to research in all levels. For indeed, the role of the university is to promote inquiry learning, and it is connected, and that is exactly what we should do. And that the role of the university is to help students handle what we call the super complexity of our world. Our previous presenter mentioned all of this ever-changing technology. It's getting complex. And through research, inquiry learning, we are preparing our student for such a world. The Boyer Commission states that the role of the university is to produce a scholar. A scholar. And that is the focus of many schools now. How to produce a scholar graduate. I took one example of a university. This is in Australia. They define their scholarly graduate as follows. That graduate must be informed, must be an independent learner, must be a problem solver, must be an effective communicator, and must be responsible. We can only develop and produce these outcomes if we are engaging our student in research, even undergraduate students. For us Adventist teachers, there is an added impetus for us to make research, undergraduate research, a key dimension of our educational direction. Why? We read from the book Education, page 17 to 18, that every human being is created in the image of God. And part of that recreation of the image of God is the work of true education. And what is that? To develop that power to think and to do, to train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thought. That is a mandate as Adventist educational institutions. So the question now is, how much of the inquiry learning or research are we doing in our schools? Let me go back to inquiry learning because it is a very important framework in understanding what research should take place in undergraduate education. This diagram is from Levy, date is 2009. He has a quadrant there. On top of the figure is student-led. On the bottom of the diagram is staff-led. On the left side is the kind of learning that can be characterized as exploring and acquiring existing knowledge. On the right side of the diagram is the kind of knowledge wherein the students participate in building knowledge itself. So on the upper left-hand quadrant, you have their pursuing information. I will spend more time there later. On the lower left quadrant, you have their identifying information. On the upper right quadrant, you have discovery or active learning. And then on the lower right quadrant, you have producing or discovery responsive learning. Now, the point in inquiry learning is this. In all of these different kinds of learning, where are our student research projects focused? Where? For example, in the upper left quadrant, the question of the student, or the question the student should address is, what is the existing answer to my question? And this is based on existing knowledge. On the lower left quadrant, the question to be addressed in research is, what is the existing answer to this question? An existing answer that is based on the discipline of the student. On the upper right quadrant is the question, how can I answer my question? Again, this is based on, this is an open question. Uh-oh. What's happening? And then the lower right quadrant, the upper left quadrant now is, how can I answer my question? So how do we use this diagram in guiding our students in the development of topics or the choice of topics? We will get back to that shortly. There is another question in relation to undergraduate research, another issue. The issue is, how do we define the knowledge that is the content of undergraduate research? The common answer is, it must be new or original. New or original. Willison and Regan, in their article dated 2007, raised several penetrating questions related to the issue of new knowledge. So what do we mean by new knowledge? Their first question is, that knowledge may be new to the learner, but already known to the discipline. Will we accept this for undergraduate student research? New to the learner, but already the answers are already there if he studies a little bit more. Will we accept this as an undergraduate research? Will your school accept it? The next meaning of new is that it's not new to the student, but it's new to others outside the discipline, but it's already common knowledge by specialists. Will we accept this kind of topic? The next one is new knowledge to humankind, one that is really, really new. Do we expect this kind of question to be addressed by an undergraduate student, or this is only for masters and doctoral? Are you aware that sometimes we require this really new kind of knowledge to undergraduate students? You know, we have not really thought carefully. What do we mean by new? New to the learner? New to the listeners? Or really nobody knows that it's really new? So now we really have a good kind of research. What do we mean by new? So, in view of our understanding of inquiry learning and this question of new, I would like to follow what Willison and Regan are suggesting. That curriculum planners, that's us, curriculum planners, deans and department heads, and advisors, be aware of the progression of research skills and appropriately guide students as they progress in the development of their research skills. Let me show you a chart that I have compiled. Now, can I bring this microphone around? And okay, come closer a little bit so that you can see there. You see there okay, good, somebody is pointing now. We are putting together now the theories on inquiry-based learning. Thank you so much. We are putting together now theories on inquiry-based learning, and we are also putting together the issue of what topics, what do you mean by new? Okay, so if you can see on the screen, under inquiry-based learning, there are two cells there. It's from the chart, actually. I just reformatted it. On one side, composing of two columns, are exploring and acquiring existing knowledge. This is existing knowledge. And under it are identifying and pursuing. On the right column, on top there, is participating in building knowledge, and you have producing and authoring knowledge. Under it, on the lower part of the table, you can see there Willison and Regan's research skill development framework. What is that? They are suggesting that as part of research, all of this kind of research, from identifying and pursuing existing knowledge, to the right side, participating in building knowledge, producing or authoring, all of these are acceptable kinds of research. It's acceptable kind of research. We can accept it in our schools. But we have to be aware that because of the developing research skills of our students, most of them will start with researching on knowledge that is new to them. New to them. We as teachers, we already know the answers, but we must develop the research skills of the students. They start with questions that is new to them, but we know the answer. Then they move on to the student partly know about the answer. We know about the answer, but they must know it some more. And then they move toward the right. When we really have new to some in the discipline, but already known to specialists, and some undergraduate students can do this if we support them, new knowledge to humankind. Most of this new knowledge to humankind is the focus of masteral, especially doctoral programs, not undergraduate program. So I begin to realize now that when I listen sometimes to what the students tell me, I usually interview the students, so what are you doing now? So they say, oh, I'm graduating, I'm writing my thesis. So I said, so what's your topic? He said, I'm getting a hard time because my topic is not new. They get a hard time finding a topic because they say the teacher will say, oh, that's not new. I already know the answer of that. So there is a spectrum of what can be considered as new. And as Regan and Wilson mentioned to us, is that, Regan and Williston mentioned to us, we must be aware of the different stages of this development of research skills. Next question that I want to ask you. I still have time. The next question that I want to ask you is, do we require all students to do undergraduate research or only a few academically able students? We require all? I discovered that in the United States and in the United Kingdom and in Europe, they do not require, even in research universities, all students to do certain types of research. They require them to do some kind of research, but not all needs to do senior thesis. Do you have a senior thesis? The research that must be done by graduating students? There is a spectrum, different ideas. For example, I discovered that when I look at the practices, best practices, I discovered that in many American universities, they only require higher level of research to those who have high GPA or do belong to the honors class. Do you have, in AUP we don't have an honor program. Do you have honors program? Yeah, that you belong to a special class, you attend under a special teacher if your GPA is high. They do not mix you with the honor student, are not mixed with lower GPA students. We don't have that in AUP. Do you have here? None? How about in AIU? You have honors program? Oh, in Thailand, but not AIU. Yeah. But in Thailand, in the big universities, they have honors program. I think it takes a lot of money to really separate students by GPA. I also discovered that when they become third year or fourth year, before they write senior's thesis or whatever project, some schools look at the GPA. And if they have a high GPA, they say, oh, you can be a cum laude, summa cum laude. We suggest you make a senior's thesis. Those with lower GPA have a different kind of thesis or project focus. Because the theory is, and it's a good theory, the students have different levels of capability in doing research. And so they are classified or they are encouraged based on their capability to do specific kinds of research. And there is an implication to our operation. For example, practical issues. Did you ever think that if we require all students to really have the quality of research that the knowledge is almost unknown, it's really for specialists. Do you know how many students can our faculty handle? We may not have enough faculty for them to really learn the specialist type. I'm not talking about being a master's thesis. I'm just talking about even the advanced type of professional training or an undergraduate level. We might not have adequate faculty. Secondly, the resources. To those in the sciences, they need laboratories, they need money, they need resources. Is the school willing to provide it? For example, in psychology, sometimes we require this survey or that survey. So I ask the student, how much will it cost? Many times the approach is costing them a lot of money. So are we realistic in the resources that are needed in order to be successful in the kind of research that we are asking them to do? And then there are also implications to curriculum design. Since my time is short, I have some, this is not new. I just look at the practices and look what is best. My purpose is to help me lead the faculty so that we can have better undergraduate research program in our university. And I hope it will be helpful to you. So I put together best practices. I studied the options. And one of the options I discovered is, it's good that they have what they call the ladder model. In the Philippines, we call it ladderized. I don't know how you call it in Indonesia. It is a progressive kind of research. And that the senior thesis are only for capable students. Not all can write senior's thesis. But we need to train our students in research. So the question now is, how? I put together a table there, and let me explain it to you a little bit, if I can go down, okay? When you see on the chart, on the left, on your left column, there are two sub-columns under it. You have there exploring and acquiring existing knowledge. This kind of research should be required, I believe, to all students when they graduate the university. They should be able to what? Explore and acquire existing knowledge. We should teach them the tools of research. How will they find answers to the problems that they will face individually and also in their professions? So my suggestion is, under this column, you have another column. In general education, the courses, I think in AUP we have one course like that on research. I think many of us have a general education course, first year, second year, that teach research to students, right? I think most of us have. So I think we can improve it by being aware that although the topic that the student will write at this point is new to him or to her, but not new to us, we should accept it. Because the main purpose, the main outcome of this course is, even though the question is already old to us, but new to the learner, is to check and to teach the student how to find resources, how to do research, how to write, how to make valid deductions and conclusions. Even though the question is new only to the learner, but it's important that at this point, the student learns the basic tools of research. Now, we have a challenge here. For many of us, these general education courses are large classes because they're general education. Maybe like AUP, the average student there will be 25, 30, because it is a general education course. Is it the same? I think the challenge for us for improving is we must make these classes smaller. I read in what I have studied that because they really want the undergraduate student, this is what they call the induction in research. They are introduced to research. The average size of the class is 20 to 25. So that the student can really learn how to do research and be guided. This is very important because this is foundational to the education of the student. So that is in general education. The next step in the ladder, I should have illustrated it better. The next step in the ladder is a course in professional training that is research-oriented. This is already in their professional training. Are you offering that? For example, I'm in theology. Are we offering or are we requiring a research class in theology so that the student can know how to do exegesis and doctrinal interpretation? It may not be in one course, but we must check it in our curriculum map. Where is it that the student learns this? the basic tools of research. Because remember, in a complex world, we cannot teach the student everything. But if we teach the student the inquiry and research, we will have a graduate who will be a scholar. When he graduates, he may not have all the answers, but he knows how to find the answers and know which one are the right answers. So it's important at this point that in our curriculum mapping, we make this as an outcome. We define the skills in the professional training, and we measure whether the student has adequately learned the research skills corresponding to those outcomes. So, the research question at this time is new to the learner but already known in the discipline. And many times, as it's suggested there, the teacher gives the topic so that the teacher can test whether the student knows how to answer the question. In the first column there, the learner chooses a topic, any topic, as long as he or she is guided in the research tools. In the next column, the second column, it is the teacher who chooses the topic to test the research capability of the student and guide the student and check whether the student has the research tools for that profession. And then on the third column, the senior year, I have been thinking carefully what to do here. Because at the bottom line you see, at the bottom paragraph of the third column, as you can see there, the authoring, the research topic that will bring some new perspective, new information, or introduce a new form of performance, or technique, or technology in the discipline or the profession is only for selected students who are adequately prepared, mentally capable to produce this kind of research. But then, does it mean that the other senior or graduating students will not do anything? Based on what I have been studying in other schools or in best practices, the other senior students who are not selected will do a research that is new to the student and new to some in the discipline, but is already known to the specialist. And the focus of this research for other students in the senior year is not so much new knowledge, but mastery in the research skills of their own discipline. So the purpose is primarily professional, not so much new knowledge. I hope, dear friends, this little summary of directions in undergraduate research will help you improve, and we can, as together in our schools, we can produce better research on our undergraduate students. Thank you.